Over the last month or so, I've had the opportunity to participate in an Everfest class draft run by Ted over at TCGTed. While similar in concept to a box break or a collective case split, Ted's concept of weighing the buy-ins based on the potential payout I thought was pretty novel. Instead of being focused on giving a portion of a box or streamlining a player's access to a particular faction or class, this was more of a high payout type of focus, where for a weighed buy-in you could, essentially, improve your pull chance to access high-end cards. Now, for sure, this isn't typically the type of thing that I myself participate in, but I was intrigued at the start, both in if it would practically work, but also how it would functionally turn out for the various participants, myself, of course, notwithstanding. So for the cost of basically 9 packs, I took a crack at it. In today's video, I want to talk about not only how it went, but my experience and then my thoughts on application of this model going forward. A huge shout out to our channel members for supporting what we do here. If you want to get involved with the channel and the Dice Commando community, please consider joining as a channel member. Remember, these videos are only possible with your support. You can show that support with a like, a subscribe, and by leaving us a comment and sharing your feedback. Community first, and go Commando. Hey there, Flesh and Blood folks. Welcome back to Dice Commando and Go Again, a fabulous cast. Thanks for checking in once again. I'm Andrew with here as always, talking everything Flesh and Blood, including, like tonight, how we actually procure some of our cards. And I thought tonight was pretty interesting. Now, before we get into this full on, I do want to take something kind of head on here, right? A good number of people will look at this entire conversation from the perspective of, did I get my money's worth? And basically just kind of end their engagement right there. So I want to just get it out of the way to begin with. Yes, as per singles prices, I did make back my purchase and actually a little bit more, but not everyone did. Right? So, and I want to stress in that doing something like this, and this format in particular, it isn't just about the ROI, because obviously the ROI is a major motivation in the buy-in, but you also have to acknowledge that there's a gambling component to it, right? And kind of to that end, I'll throw it up right now, look at how he valued Merchant. Right, and I want to say that that was actually probably the most fun part of all of this, is even though I never did the Merchant buy-in, over the first 4-week period, the first case, they actually did pull a silver hands out of that, right? So whoever and somebody did, right? Somebody just threw in the dollar for the Merchant, and they ended up getting probably, I mean, I didn't do all the math, but probably they got the best ROI of anybody. But obviously you would have to acknowledge that that's a pretty low chance scenario to do, right? But it's, hey, throw in $1, maybe you get a bunch. Throw in $8, maybe it's more consistent. You get the concept, right? So, and then on top of that, additionally, there's a fun factor in all of this that I don't think you can really price in. And to be clear, I'm not going to encourage everyone, right, of all walks of life to go out and run and do this, because there are people out there that will enjoy this and there are people out there that won't, right? I personally had a ton of fun doing it, but it's not normally the type of thing that speaks to me. So, you know, it's not for everybody, but I did want to look at the concept tonight and really go through, you know, what can we learn from this, and you know, how could we apply it in other situations going forward? So with all that out of the way, let's get into this PTI style, of course, because we all love PTI style. So first off, I want to get this out of the way as well. TCG Ted did a great job. This was his baby, so I want to make sure everyone's aware of him. You can find him over at TCG Ted on YouTube. It was really cool hanging out, watching the streams live as he cracked this, people chatting back and forth. Go check him out if he's your thing. Give him the love, give him the like, give him the sub, and yeah, I'll make sure to throw the link below. And thanks, Ted, for involving me in this. That was really really opportunity to get involved in. So, all right, what is the concept of the class draft that Ted was doing? Right. So the image you can see there. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's pretty simple overall. What a lot of, I mean, doing a case break or box break or packs break or whatever it may be is not a novel concept, right? But what he did is he basically said, all right, within Everfest, you have access to all the classes plus the generics, and not all of them are as good as others, right? We're all well aware of that. The payout, obviously, for Guardian, right? Guardian not only has double-sided Bravo, but it has the Fabled, plus a lot of other really good stuff. So obviously, if you wanted to buy into the Guardian slot, it was going to cost you more than if you were going to buy into the Mechanologist slot, which basically has not much, right? So what you get by buying in is you get any Fableds, which not all classes have access to Fabled. You get Legendaries, Majestics, the Cold Foils, and the Extended Art cards. You do not get Rare Foils and below, or the Rares or the Commons or anything like that, right? So again, this is not something that is designed for a player to build their collection, right? I mean, let's be very, very clear about this. This is designed for someone to widen their collection of the top-end stuff, or to chase the big bombs, right? I mean, that's really the idea behind this. So yeah. So as far as it goes, what I did personally is I got in on, I believe, week 1, maybe it was week 2, but I bought the Runeblade slot and the Illusionist slot each for $8, right? So what there were some cards for both classes that I needed, and I was like, you know what? For 2 packs, effectively, I can get a box worth chance of getting a Majestic that I wanted. And, I did some quick math, and it looked like the risk reward was there for me. Plus I wanted to participate. And then you tack $3 shipping on. Ted did let me combine shipping between the 2 times that I did it. So I think week 2 and week 4, either way, twice I did $8 for Illusionist and $8 for Runeblade. So $32 there for twice, plus the 3 shipping. So for $35, so effectively the cost of 9 or 10 packs, depending on your store discount and cost, I got myself access to 2 boxes worth of Illusionist or Runeblade M's, or foil M's, or anything else sexy, right? So the pulls, was it worth it? I'm showing up right now that the pulls that I did get. He also does giveaways. I also was able to win a giveaway there. So that shouldn't count in the factor, right? So the giveaway was awesome, much appreciated. Thank you, Ted. But it shouldn't factor in because not everybody's going to win that, right? So for me personally, it did work out. You can see the cards I got there. If you do the math on at least of when, I mean, I'm not checking every day, guys, right? But at the point that I was looking at, was this worth it or not, it was roughly equivalent to what I'd paid, right? If I used that money and instead I went on to TCG Player and I were to buy those particular cards, did I make my monies back? It was about the same, right? So, like I said, just throwing it out there, I think I made maybe a couple bucks, and then you add on the experience of that and everything. So it worked out, right? On the flip side, though, if you were to compare because what we're doing is we're comparing this to other models of doing collective breaks or whatever it may be. There is an opportunity cost in this, and that the opportunity cost being that you give yourself a lot of bonus on the high end, right? You have a lot better chance by doing it this way. You have a lot better chance for a lower cost of getting a higher card. So the gambling perspective, but the opportunity cost is you don't get the commons. You don't get there were a lot of really cool foils that I saw got pulled that were access in my classes that I did not get because that's not part of the deal, right? Which makes sense to be fair, I'm not knocking it. For $3 shipping, which is pretty great, he can't send you a pack of stuff. Everybody gets that. But, I saw like a Rune Chane incantation that I wanted that was foil and all this stuff, and like, you don't have access to that, right? And I assume it either goes into his collection or gets chucked, one of the two, right? But again, that is part of your, aside from the actual cost, there's the opportunity cost of that. But on the flip side, you have the exposure to you have a lot higher exposure than if you were to just, buy your 10 packs, right? I mean, and that's what it really boils down for me is if I was going to go out and buy 10 packs, I would likely not have had the same focused success as I did doing it with this method, right? On the flip side, I would have gotten a whole bunch of foil commons and rares and presumably other stuff. So again, you need to, obviously you need to evaluate what you want, evaluate your goals and how it fits in with you. So the positive and negative. So I actually grouped these together because in a lot of cases they're the same, right? I mean, the positive here, well, the biggest positive is that for, look at some of those classes on there, right? $3 for Ranger, Warrior, Mechanologist. Earlier I apologize. Earlier I said Merchant was $1, Merchant was $2. I apologize. But you look at those lower classes, right? So for less than a booster pack, you give yourself pretty good, like there's a pretty decent chance you're going to get something. Well, is there though? I mean that's why I said do positive and negative together, right? So for $3 less than a cost of a booster pack, giving yourself the exposure to pull a Rain Razors or something like that's pretty good. But you also have a pretty good chance of striking out. But then again, if you were to go buy a random booster pack and you were specifically after Ranger cards or specifically after Warrior cards, you've got a pretty good chance of striking out there too, right? So especially on the lower end, I think that's the positive of this is for the cost, let's just say the cost of a booster pack, right? For the cost of a booster pack, you give yourself a pretty good chance of hitting because you have effectively the entire box for it. Right. So, and the reason those are priced so low is because from a dollar standpoint, yeah, if you pull a Rain Razors for $3, maybe you make a couple bucks. If you pull a Blood on, I mean, I don't even think Blood on Her Hands is worth it. But again, if you wanted to just throw him $3 for the chance to get a Blood in your hands, because that's what you were looking at, it's going to work out for you. On the flip side, if you can, it's like the mystery box concept. It's like, oh man, I'm going to open this pack because there could be a Starvo in, or well. Let's use the Rain Razors example. It's like, oh, I want a Rain Razors. It's going to cost me $3. Or I could buy a pack and maybe get a Rain Razors. It's like, well, just buy the Rain Razors. You know what I mean? So basically what you're really doing, and that's what this boiled down to. I already kind of talked about it. It's the gambling aspect. What you're really doing is you're hoping you get a big win on this, right? But again, for the $3, for the $1, for the $2, I think there's a lot of positive on this. The Guardian, I do want to say in the second, I wasn't in on the second box, but I do want to say on the second box, they also hit a Starvo, I think, or maybe it was I do think, it was a full art. I think it was a full art pulverized. That's a thing, right? I think so. Anyway, the Guardian guy probably ended up making his money back. But again, it's, like I said, there's a gambling perspective of this. And that's why I don't think there are clear positives or clear negatives for an all-encompassing statement. It depends really where you sit, what your perspective is, what you're going for, right? I mean, I do know that in the last box, Ninja was, $7. Ninja's pretty good, but in the last box, they pulled a Winds of Eternity full art, right? Like that guy was sitting pretty happy for $7, but there was, the generics guy might not have been as happy paying $18, right? So, like I said, the positives and negatives, I think, go both ways, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on. So one negative overall, as I do want to say, one negative overall, as not with necessarily the system, but just with the way it works in Everfest itself, is because the range of classes is so wide, there were people within each box that just swung and missed, right? And that kind of stinks. On the flip side, if you were to do it on a set, and that's the negative of doing it in a class like Everfest, on the flip side, or a set like Everfest, on the flip side, if you were to do it on a normal set, it would probably be more equally distributed overall. So you probably wouldn't be able to get classes for $2 or $3 and then have somebody at 25, right? So again, like I say, all the positives seem to be balanced by a negative, which is why I think it really just falls into your decision on whether it's something that appeals to you or not. And I think that is overall, is a positive, right? Now, in terms of practicality on a larger scale, right? So let's say everybody in the world saw this video, everybody headed over to TCG Ted, and they're like, oh man, let's start doing this. We're going to do it regularly. Like I think Ted's doing this weekly. And I do think that's part of the problem is I think there's a lot of human glue, especially on his side, involved in doing this. And I think that scaling it up might be really difficult, very difficult, and probably not much. We were talking ROI earlier, right? In terms of his ROI, I don't really, he's, to be honest, he's probably buying the box at some sort of discount and then selling effectively at an MSRP split. But he gets boned if somebody doesn't grab, in theory, then he gets boned if somebody doesn't grab all the classes. But then he's pocketing, like I said, there's, at a large scale, could he make a career out of doing this? Almost certainly not, right? But there's a lot of fun to it, and if a whole bunch of people are doing this, but still, I think he's doing this for fun. I think that if you were to pick this up, it would be something that you would target to do for fun. I don't think you're going to make a lot of money on this. I don't think if you're participating in this, you're going to make a lot of money on this. It's essentially playing the lottery or whatever. So from, on a larger scale, I think functionally still doing the, building and getting players, this is not what this is going to do, right? This is, you should still do the case splits case splits, box splits, whatever you want to do with your locals, with your play group. I think it's probably the way to go. This is really just a niche thing for people who are looking for the big sexies, right? The big sexies. And that's where it comes down to. That's where I've got that, the feels, right, is, I think overall, I mean, if the same, because I don't know who signed up for everything, right? If I'm looking at the case, I think probably the Guardian overall did okay, right? I think he got enough to pay back his $100, right? So the Guardian, for let's say that one person did do a case, I think a Guardian, cost him $100. I think overall, based on what I saw, and I didn't price it out, but based on what I saw, I think he made back his investment in terms of TCG player equivalency, right? But, if it wasn't like, let's say you're just buying in on one time, $25 to swing and miss is a lot, right? So, I think there's a potential for a lot of feel bads here. I mean, the Merchant felt freaking great, right? $2 for a legendary, even if it's a complete crud legendary, it still feels pretty good, because even if you get the card and throw it immediately in the trash, you still feel like you won the lottery, right? Regardless of the money. So, I think there's definitely the upside potential of that. That said, in something like Everfest, because you're getting 6 to 8 M's, maybe 6 to 9 M's in Everfest. Is that about right? I know you guys will correct me if I'm wrong, but by and large, there's not enough to go around, right? So people are getting it's not good, right? Or it's not that it's not good. It's just that not everybody's getting something, right? So you have to understand that going in, and you have to be very clear. I believe you have to be very clear with, if you're doing this in your play group, whatever, you have to let people understand that this is not the same as everybody's collectively splitting, that it's not the same as a case break, a case split or something like that. This is gambling, right? And in order for somebody to win, somebody's got to lose, right? I mean, that's you just got to be clear about that. So, right, again, it's not necessarily that it feels bad, it's just acknowledging that somebody is going to feel bad, right? I mean, it's going to happen. So now in terms of future applications of this, I've been going back and forth, because I think the way that Ted did this was, so let's say it this way, right? I think that it would be more even on, obviously it'll be, if there's a 4-class set, you basically break it by 5, right? It'd be the 4 classes and generics, or maybe you do something where you split the generics 4 ways or whatever, which is what we've done in previous case splits with my play group. But for future applications, right, the way he's done this, I think, is almost unique to a supplemental set, because you're not going to, in theory at least, in a 4-class set, you're not going to have quite the same weighting differences. And that's almost the case. That's almost the case where you should do a case split, I would think. Whereas I think the future application of this probably lies more successfully, or at least lies more attractively, with the supplemental set. But again, that's just my take. I mean, it's not that you couldn't. You could absolutely do this with like a core set. But I think that functionally, just with the wide range of differences, in terms of having the big sexy hit of the Merchant hitting the legendary, you're not going to have that, right, in a 4-class, 3-class even, Tales of Aria type thing. So obviously the buy-in's going to be more expensive, which is going to chase people away. A lot of people throw $3 for Warrior. A lot less people are going to throw $25 for Guardian, right? So, and I think that's just the practical future application of it. That said, I think, I don't know. In conclusion, I had a great time trying it out. I don't think I'll be doing it much more, just because, I've kind of got what I need. But that's why it really appealed to me. I was like, there's some specific stuff I'm looking for. Well, it's not that I was looking for specific cards. In that case, I would have gone to just TCG player, but I knew I had a gap because I didn't have the Runeblade and Illusionist, because I hadn't focused and traded on those, because I don't regularly play those. And I had a gap, and I was like, this is a good way to cover that gap and give me a starting point before I go out and buy the singles. So I was like, hey, let's try it. Let's roll the dice and see what we get. And like I said, it worked out, and now I've got less gaps to close, and it was successful on my side, and I really enjoyed the experience. But to everybody, spending money for the online experience isn't necessarily the thing. So again, know your audience, know yourself, and I think go from there. So anyway, before we get out of here, again, I want to thank you, Ted, if you're still watching at this point. If you have even watched this, I don't know. I think you're doing a really good thing over there, and I think you deserve more subs, and I'd like to see more people go over check it out. And, keep me involved in stuff going forward. As for the rest of you, go check them out if this is something that appeals to you. If not, no worries. And then, you know what? Honestly, see what you can do and see if there's any interest in your own play group about doing something like this, or how you might evolve it or modify it for your play group coming forward. And, something like this is a good way. Well, something like this modified is a good way to get new players in and help new players really build their collections, while also giving access to existing players because they want the top end stuff, right? So there are ways, I believe, you can modify this based on your own playgroup needs, wants, and desires to be very, very successful. So anyway, that'll cap it out for tonight. You know what? Happy Wednesday, everyone, or I guess Thursday morning, depending on where you're on the world. So thanks for tuning in. If nothing else, folks, go Commando.